Optique 2000, vivez la passion du tour auto.
Paris, Place de la Concorde. On this Monday morning, the preparations are in full swing. A stone's throw from this splendid scene, they're adding the final touches to the jewels that will be offered to the eyes of the Paris public. Collectors from all around Europe have come to celebrate the premium classic automobile event. A unique setting worthy of the kings of France. And there'll be plenty more surprises to come. Even if we're just around the corner from the Place des Vosges and its prestigious goldsmiths and jewelers, these jewels are on wheels and they'll cross France from north to south, from Paris to Beaulieu-sur-Mer, covering nearly 2,000 kilometers. You were not mistaken, this is the Tour de France Auto 2010. An event in less than 20 years that's become one of the most highly renowned classic car races in the world. The preparations are running perfectly for the organizing teams to ensure the perfect running of this edition, just like for the competitors who all want to be up to standard for this unique rendezvous. We're happy because we do it for ourselves, but also for the spectators, for all the lovers of beautiful cars. There's a great field with this anniversary, this celebration of the 50th anniversary of the victory of the 250 GTO. We've managed to bring 16 cars together, and I think it's the first time that's been done, so we're very happy. A first among so many others, because Patrick Peter has prepared an exceptional edition, taking into account this extraordinary field of cars. Each year, with his team, he aims to surprise the loyal supporters of the Tour Auto, to find new ideas, new circuits, new stages, to be sure to leave them with an indelible memory. The first reward at the end of this day of preparations is the inaugural soirée, which hosted an impressive crowd, numerous personalities of motorsport present, the humorous Laurent Gérard, and nothing less in guest stars than the fashion designer Ralph Lauren and FIA President John Todd. First stage, Tuesday. Starting from Paris to Aurore to rally Vichy, while passing by the circuit of Magny-Cours, with already a major surprise in store. The official start of the event is given in the court of the Château de Fontainebleau, the first in the unravelling of the Tour Auto. But before that, it's necessary to wake up the men and mechanics.
Ça va, qui peut être mieux que nous là?
In this unique and prestigious setting, Ferraris, Porsches, Aston Martins, De Tomasos, Alpines, Alfa Romeos, in all 240 collectors' cars. The rare and unique models of all generations feel as though they're in their element. Works of craftsmen, originators, avant-gardists, cars and buildings blend together in this celebration of aesthetics. This often harmonious confrontation, sometimes anachronistic, seldom shocking, gives an additional dimension to the start of the event. Among others for Peter Neumark, for whom it's a major rendezvous at the wheel of his 250 GT.
Chassis number 1917, German history in the main. Main driver was Peter Nocker, won its class at Nürburgring in 1000k, just got a nice racing history. And I've been lucky enough to own the car for 4 years now. But this is the first serious event I've really done with it.
Prestigious brands and names follow one another randomly in the meetings in this Parc Fermé, unlike any other. There's something here for all tastes. Popular rubs shoulders with the most noble. But here, who cares about these differences? Here we conjugate passion for the automobile in all its forms, with various fortunes.
Just checking our fluids, a standard thing that you have to do. But the car is brand new, so we're still trying to learn where the fluids go. And it's the first time the co-driver has driven it. But so far, so good. We just hope it doesn't snow or rain in Megève, but with weather like this, we're still at the moment very, very happy. Excuse me, I'm just going to try.
While they head off under the starter's arch, others live these moments of exception impatiently. There's the pleasure of being here, that of being seen, to see the others, or quite simply of living the moment. In the midst of these exceptional machines, we find a regular in the event, a great name in motorsport who presents the car he'll be driving, or should we say piloting, over the next days. It's an Alpine that ran in the Monte Carlo Rally in 1973 with Bob Volek, who's unfortunately no longer with us. And the owner of the car, who's my co-driver, Mr. Mercier, asked Renault if I could drive his car every year. And every year we're here in the Tour Auto. And how many would dream to be here, through the countryside, to rejoin the buttresses of Morvan and the first special stage, bordered by the Yonne and the Nièvre. The route is opened by the Ferrari 250s, but it's not they who'll get the best of this selective course, where we occasionally hit narrow, windy and slippery lanes. No, the first sporting emotion of the event live in the AC Cobra of the winner of the 2009 season, the British driver Shaun Lynn, who ate tiger for breakfast and is coming up on the car preceding him. A man in a hurry, evidently. Having done with this more cautious competitor, Lynn will still not be among the fastest. It's the E-Type Jaguar that takes the lion's share. Incredible! In its category, it's also the Alpine of Jean Ragnotti who sets the reference time. Not really a surprise. And even if they don't classify as well, the others are not lacking in merit. Because the significant thing here is not the performance levels, in any case, not just that. The pleasure of running on these roads closed to road traffic to let the engines roar, that has no equal for these impassioned racers. After the pastoral atmosphere of these first kilometers of competition, it's a more technological atmosphere that accommodates the participants at Magny-Cours, the track of the most recent Formula One Grand Prix, the first circuit in this Optic 2000 Tour Auto. All the competitors will parade on the track at more or less high speed, but before that they gather for an assistance meeting that's the stage of some remarkable scenes. A public overcome by the presence of such a panel of Ferrari 250 GTs, with an American crew and Italian instructions, meaning they don't quite understand in the assigned time. It's a clever blend of exception and simplicity. Selected scenes and parts from the Tour Auto.
So far so good.
E allora abbiamo 7 minuti.
Ma dobbiamo arrivarci fino a lì, 7 minuti.
On the track, here we are with the Field 5 that brings together a superb Ligier JS2 and some Porsche prototypes, two cars that will dominate the event in this category. On such a broad and fast track, it's the power that talks, and we systematically find the most aggressive cars, mainly cut out for track events. Logical in some ways, and it's at the heart of the philosophy of the Tour Auto. There's something there for everyone, and for some, those who are lost on the road, they can catch up in events on the circuit. With occasional changes at hand. The car let go when it went into the gravel trap and it flipped over. It's on its roof in the gravel trap, but on the track it was just a spin. In engaged in the competition for absolute speed or in regularity, where only the respect of mean velocity counts. The competitors have all fully benefited from these rare moments where they can race at the wheel of their classic car on one of the most prestigious tracks. Each at his own pace, each one in his particular state of mind, in total freedom. Here thus already a first day of events which touches at its end. The sun is low when the competitors enter the Parc Fermé at Vichy. There's a festive, relaxed atmosphere, as entering an event is still a delicate moment to negotiate. But on this Tuesday, even the weather was lenient. It's the second year we're here. It's great. The weather was with us. This morning, Fontainebleau was very pleasant at daybreak. It was a very nice stage with magnificent scenery and good atmosphere. I touch wood that it continues like this for 4 more days. On board one of the Ferrari 275 GTBs, a team from afar come to live this Tour Auto, but the effort was worth it.
It's a very competitive grid. There's 25 cars, I think, in Section 4, starting with some Cobras, very big horsepowers, and then more finesse cars, the 910 Porsches. So it's a very competitive grid. We did a extraordinarily long hill climb, 10 kilometers, and then Magny-Cours this afternoon.
In French, in the text, Peter Neumark and David Franklin would say impeccable, but they're more concentrated on French specialities that have nothing to do with linguistics.
Very good day. Yeah. Beautiful weather, good roads, good company.
Time for a beer.
Couldn't be better. Time for a beer. Preferably a French beer.
In short, the aim is now just to have a great time, for the eyes of the public once again in their droves, and a paradise for the competitors, highly fatigued after 12 hours spent in their cockpits. That's the simple version, but there are also those who experience their first hassles, minor technical gremlins that finally find a solution. We found it. It was a breakdown in the overdrive, just a little part that was disconnected. Nothing at all. A twopenny breakdown as usual. It's fixed, so we finish our evening servicing and we're ready for tomorrow morning. A Tour Auto is prepared more than a year in advance. Booking circuits, hotel rooms, 600 are required every evening to accommodate drivers, the organizers, as well as volunteers, decisive in the life of the tour. All motorsports work with volunteers. Clearly, we have the marshals who are along the routes and on the tracks. So, on an event like this one, we have around 120 people in the organization who go from Paris right till the end.
Qui vont depuis Paris jusqu'à la fin. Là-dedans, c'est à peu près moitié-moitié.
In that, it's about half-half between the sports people, like the timekeepers, the marshals and so on. Then there are the non-sporting ones, who are there before and after the cars. They prepare the stage, installing the sponsors' bunting, looking after the shuttles in the evening and so on. On top of the 120 people, we can add all the marshals that we find on each special stage or circuit, who are specific to the region. So that makes a lot of people. and without them, the race couldn't exist.
Sans eux, les courses ne pourraient pas exister.
And to supervise all these people, Edouard de Saint-Olive has been on the tour since 1994. We have more than 70 or 80 assistance vehicles. We have around 50 organization vehicles that follow. Each has its own routes. And there are people we don't see who work upstream. They're the people in the shadows. They're always there 1 or 2 days before and start preparing everything. And to cross the most beautiful roads of France, the Republican Guard has been present on the tour for 2 years.
Le rôle de l'escadron motocycliste de la garde républicaine, c'est d'assurer.
The role of the motorcyclists of the Republican Guard is to assure the safety of the competitors in the race, but also eventually spectators and photographers alongside, to allow the passage through delicate spots of all the competitors in a safe way, and to regulate the entrance into major urban areas, as there are machines that are sensitive and that heat up very quickly.
Des mécaniques qui sont sensibles et qui chauffent très rapidement. Alors on le rappelle, la garde républicaine s'occupe également.
The Republican Guard also takes care of the President of the Republic when he goes out. Here it's something else very precious to protect.
À protéger. Comment vous les trouvez ces voitures? Comment?
How do you live this week? What do you think of the cars?
Alors c'est vrai que les missions de l'escadron motocycliste sont.
It's true the mission of the motorcycle squadron is very varied, going from the support from the President, of course, also escorting authorities in the Paris region, and also sporting events, cycling and motor racing. In the squadron, we're all impassioned by motorsports in general. It's a pleasure for us to assure this mission.
D'assurer cette mission. Combien vous êtes, capitaine?
How many are you in the squadron for this Tour Auto, Captain?
Donc nous sommes 10.
We're 10 motorcyclists in the squadron, as well as support personnel with the sweeper vehicle that allows us to materialize the race finish.
De matérialiser la fin de course.
What a pleasure to drive on a closed circuit without worrying about traffic coming the other way. I love it. Just behind the Republican Guard, Margot Lafitte, daughter of the former Formula One driver, gives the experience of driving a Fiat Abarth to a journalist and also discovers for the first time the Tour Auto. I knew about its renown, but I never knew there were so many cars running. I'm still surprised. I'm not well up on historic events. There are a lot of models I wouldn't recognize. That's a shame. I'll have to work on that, because there are some fantastic models. Margot Lafitte is also responsible for making reference times for the competitors. It's very windy.
C'est très excitant. Ce qui est très excitant, ce sont les spéciales, parce qu'il se passe un truc, c'est sur 9 km.
It's very exciting. What's the most exciting is the special stages, because it's over 9 kilometers or so. Today it was 7.5, and I have lots of fun because it's timed. Being on a closed circuit's great. I'd never done a rally, but it's a little bit the same, except you're missing a navigator. I like the idea of being on a circuit to be able to attack like crazy. And when we're on nice tracks like Charade, Le Castellet and so on, magnificent.
Le Castellet, Brest, enfin bref, voilà, magnifique.
The next day, 387 kilometers starting from Vichy in the early morning to rally the capital of the Gauls by the end of the day, passing by the Charade circuit before running 2 specials. Built in 1957, it hosted, as of its opening in 1958, the Tour Automobile. The track, mythical for the amateurs of classic cars, poses a few problems for the leader of the competition.
Yeah, we're trying to adjust the carburetors because we're so high. You have to adjust the carburetors because the atmosphere is so thin. So it's running bad.
The preoccupations of the crews are not all technical. Many have a lot of trouble grasping this famous mountain circuit. It's the first time for us that we've tried to make our way, to gain a bit of familiarity with the track. At Charade, we're on the track with Field 4 and the title holder, who has decided not to let anyone else beat him on this circuit. We note that the Jaguar, smashed the day before, is able to set out again with a somewhat changed design. The succession of cars is exceptional for the specialists, but also for the Philistines, whether one knows by heart the history of the manufacturer or you're just satisfied with appreciating their aesthetics. This high-speed procession of 200 vehicles still running in competition does not leave the viewer indifferent. At lunchtime, it's a tradition. The Tour Auto allows participants to discover some uncommon places, such as here, the Volor Chateau, where the teams take a well-deserved break. And to open the afternoon's competition, a special which, as is the case for many of the events in the Optic 2000 Tour Auto, is lived close up by the inhabitants. No one in the region is ignorant of the fact that the Tour Auto's passing through. The local festivities have been prepared, just like the competitors, weeks ahead of time. The start takes place in the small village of Aubusson d'Auvergne, the finish in Volor. On the 7.5 kilometers, it's Jean Agnotti who's the fastest, once again, and he also wins the time trial before returning to Lyon. In Field 3, while Ferraris dominate when it comes to sound, putting on a show, it's the more modest Austin Cooper S that attracts our attention. In Lyon, at the end of the stage, quite a few things have changed in the general standings. Shaun Lynn, victim of technical problems, leaves the leadership of the competition to the Frenchmen La Journade and Baron. In regularity, the Spaniards Miguel and Soares take hold of operations, with a relatively comfortable lead on the remainder of the field. They're drivers or navigators. Women are increasingly numerous. 100 participated in the 19th edition of the Tour Auto, and 4 teams were 100% feminine.
Au départ, il y a 10 ans, il y avait très peu de femmes, très peu, 1 ou 2.
10 years ago, there were very few women, just 1 or 2, and now there are a few more. In principle, all the women who are here love it, and nothing can separate us. The event's very difficult, but I've been doing it with my husband for 13 years already. We've won 7 times. We've always come with big high-performance cars, and this year it's with this baby that has absolutely nothing at all under the pedals. But we're having fun anyway. You have to get on well. It has to be either two good friends or a married couple that gets on well together. But if it's a couple that doesn't get on well, forget it. My husband always said that I was the only navigator to say, faster, let's go, let's go.
Plus vite, andiamo, andiamo.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a donné envie de faire
What made you want to do this tour auto with a friend? How's this female team working?
Ça se passe très bien, j'ai une copilote qui a un ordinateur dans la tête.
It's going very well. I have a navigator with a computer in her head who's getting on very well. There are stages where we have a train behind us because it's difficult to navigate, and for us it's okay. We've got it worked out. It's a bit rock and roll because we have a speedo that's in miles and our odometer is in kilometers, so we juggle a bit between the two. But we're having a lot of fun. That's the main thing.
Mais on s'amuse beaucoup, c'est le principal.
Vous savez, je lui fais entièrement.
You know, I trust her entirely and she trusts me entirely, or at least 90% of the time. Sometimes she says, no, it's not there. But for the speed and the control of the car and everything, I can close my eyes and she does everything.
Elle fait tout.
Attends, 6.2, en train de passer à 6.3, 6.3.
We've noticed there are more and more women in the Tour Auto. Do you feel that's a good thing? How is it between you? Have you formed a kind of little community?
Alors c'est assez rigolo, je trouve qu'il y a beaucoup de femmes en effet sur cette course.
It's funny, it's true there are a lot of women. I'm used to participating in events where I'm the only woman. But here it's true there are a lot of mixed teams and a few female teams. We're two friends who are there to have fun at the wheel of a beautiful car.
Faire plaisir au volant d'une très belle voiture.
Bah, c'est sympa de voir que oui, les femmes aussi.
It's nice to see that we women also love cars. It's not new anymore, and it's an occasion to bring them together because in motorsport it's hard because you have to find the budget and the opportunities, and it's very complicated for a lot of women who'd like to do it.
Je pense que c'est très compliqué pour beaucoup de femmes qui peut-être aimeraient le faire. Et voilà, dans des...
And in events like this, we can bring together impassioned women, so it's nice to find these people.
Ces gens-là.
Fun. That's the key word for the competitors, who after a good night's sleep will head off towards the Alps, and Megève with its prestigious ski resort. But before that, it's the circuit of La Bresse that will host a group event. 487 kilometers on the menu for the day. All the more so as the day begins, in the vineyards of the Beaujolais region. It's the occasion to admire some exceptional bodywork running in the regularity field. A speciality more difficult than it seems for the crews. It's a question of respecting ideal determined times. Speed does not come into play because it's only the difference between selected time and that put in which counts for the standings. The closer one is to the ideal time, the less penalties you receive. The car with the fewest penalties gains the best classification. Marco Caggiani is president of the Alfa Romeo team for historic racing. He's already won the performance index for the Tour Auto. The brand celebrates its centenary this year and offers us a lap on board this 1900 Ti Super. With a well-whetted appetite thanks to this opening special, we approach the 3,000 meters of the circuit of Brest with bated breath. Midday's approaching and all are out for some action. The circuit had been discovered by the organizers at the time of the preceding edition of the Optique 2000 Tour. And due to its success with the competitors, it was retained for the 2010 event. The leaders of the standings take fewer and fewer risks. Only 3 days racing remain, and the places have to be assured for the front runners. For the others, on the other hand, the pleasure of driving is the most important thing. The Alphas, the Ferrari 250 short chassis, the Ligier JS2s and Porsche 906s are all out for fun, in front of an impressive audience. In Field 3, we find the same cars as on the charade circuit to ensure animation. Drivers like Bernd Hahn in the Alfa Romeo AWG and Georges Verquin in his Lotus Elan. They'll finish in this order after some excellent performances on the track. The Ferrari short chassis 250 GT is also very well classified. Field 4 is that of the leader, Jean-Pierre Lajournal, who takes it easy, while Pierre-Alain France has the guts to put in a beautiful performance. Finally, the last field of competition being the fastest, the Ligier JS2 attacks this circuit as favorite, and the crowd are expecting a remake of the charade event. Knapfield in the lead, followed by a superb Porsche 906. It's in the afternoon in Haute-Savoie that the second road event takes place, the Voiron section, over 6.7 kilometers. After having taken scratch in the morning special, Jean Ragnotti is again fastest against the clock. But his rival, Alain Serpaggi, is not far off. It's an occasion to be seized at the start of this special, a part of the ambience that reigns in the cockpit. Smiling and relaxed, for the most part, drivers and navigators realize that what they're experiencing is a rare pleasure, and they know how to take advantage of that right up to the end. In VHC, it's Michel Bionret in a Porsche 911 who takes the section, followed by the Ferrari of Neumark and Franklin. In Group GHI and in the semi-official scratch standings, the road events have allowed Jean Ragnotti to place himself as the leader. At the end of this third day of competition, things don't change much in the general standings. The competition's still led by the duo of La Journade and Baron, and the regularity category remains under the domination of the Ferrari 275 of the Spaniards de Miguel and Suarez. The first competitors can be found on the Parc Fermé in front of the ice rink of Megève. Participants find their jewels, check the oil level, do a little cleaning. Nothing's too good for their cars. At altitude, the night was fresh. We now have to start the cars, notably Hubert Godefroy's Junior Power from 1955. Heat her up a little and we'll be ready. There are 3 special stages. We have to start quite quickly, and here we are, special after 63 kilometers.
J'ai toujours été passionné, en l'occurrence de Power, parce que j'ai appris mon métier chez Power.
I've always been an enthusiast, especially with Power, because I learned the trade with them when I was young. I was looking for a junior and I found a wreck that I paid 800 francs for. Some people say I'm doing this because I have money, but no, it was 800 francs. We started with the floor and we cut out the underside because it was a wreck. I found spare parts for what was missing, and there you go.
Donc je roulais régulièrement avec ma femme.
I drove regularly with my wife locally. That's why we did more important repairs to make the car more reliable. Hubert Godefroy participates in his first Tour Auto with his friend Pierre Duprat, his navigator.
Je voudrais simplement dire, c'est pas forcément une histoire d'argent.
I have to say it's not just about money. I've been impassioned by motorcars since I was very young, and it's a car I restored 10 or 15 years ago. The bodywork and the interior. But to make it reliable for the Tour Auto, it took me more than 1.5 months. I got up every morning between 5 and 7 o'clock, and I went home between 8 and 11 p.m. So that's a lot of hours to make the car reliable and to try to make it to the finish.
D'arriver au bout.
Bien, on y va. Allez, à droite. Avance à gauche.
And they're off towards the mountains, albeit that Hubert knows full well that he could have missed the Tour Auto.
Je tenais à remercier Honoré.
I want to thank Honoré, who drove 400 kilometers to bring me a wheel bearing. Without that, I couldn't have made it. Thanks, Honoré. Facing Hubert's Power are Aston Martins, Porsches, Jaguars and Ferraris, but in the regularity category, everyone can compete.
Et au Tour Auto, vous avez des gens tous les
In the Tour Auto, you have all social categories. You have small cars and very beautiful cars. We're a big family. There's no distinction between people driving with a car worth 10,000 euros and those with a car worth €1 million. It's a big family. We all have the same passion for cars, and I think that's very good.
Je trouve ça c'est très très bien.
La passion, ça n'a rien à voir avec le budget.
The passion has nothing to do with the budget. I get by for finding sponsors, always very correctly, but you have to get by when it comes to finding money. I can't make checks with lots of zeros on the end. So you have to be impassioned, and when you're really impassioned, you can always arrive at your ends.
C'est toujours arrivé à ses moyens.
635, top. On passe à 33 pour 35 annoncés.
When you're preparing for this 2 years in advance, it means it's really in your head and in your genes. The fourth stage will see cars arriving on the Mediterranean coast, with a finish in Aix-en-Provence. From Megève, this makes a section of no less than 534 kilometers. Reliability. It's one of the main factors to be taken into account when taking part in such an adventure. The constant pace of the event and the distance covered every day can pay their toll on the most fragile and the oldest participants. In this field, others have proven their worth, and it's thus performance that prevails. And as 3 road events are on the program of this second last day, it's the rally amateurs who'll be throwing their hearts into it. Even if their cars are rare, if finding spares often becomes a veritable nightmare, everyone plays the racing game, while on the other hand, others offer us some spectacular images. In the middle of this day's driving, there's one sole respite for the competitors, a lunch stop in the sumptuous setting of the Charmes Convent in the Isère Valley under the buttresses of the Vercors. Located on the edge of the fortified medieval borough in the heart of an exceptional natural environment, this restored 14th century convent is charged with history, with an incomparable charm, surprising once again even the most blasé. The marriage between the old machines and the monuments of the Middle Ages gives rise to a few particularly appreciated moments. Sees cars driving on a long and windy route after having passed by the edge of the Savoyard Pre-Alps, then the Drôme and the Vercors, finally approaching Provence and the famous Mont Ventoux before rejoining Toulonnais. The finish in Aix-en-Provence, a city charged with history since antiquity. It's a true festival for the competitors who are still in the race. As every evening at the end of the stage, but also throughout the day, the public answers the call. Drivers and navigators realize that the finish is fast approaching. The fifth and final day of racing sees cars heading towards Beaulieu-sur-Mer for a conclusion on the seafront. But before that, it's the Paul Ricard circuit in Le Castellet that will constitute, in figurative as well as real terms, the day's summit. 279 kilometers on the odometer before reaching the finish line and the podium. To open the day, it's the Saint-Baume Special, a real playground for the rallymen. Alain Serpaggi is leading from Jean Ragnotti. We live a few moments with them on board Porsche number 11 of crew number 231. Through the hills of Provence, the cars move at a good pace towards the Paul Ricard circuit, which hosted until the early 90s the Formula One Grand Prix. On board this Ferrari 275 GTB, the leader in regularity, holding his position firmly. He will not be threatened.
Pour moi, c'est une grande satisfaction parce que, comme je te dis, j'ai fait les tours auto pendant 14 années.
For me, it's a great satisfaction because I've done the Tour Auto for 14 years. I was in the lead 2 times and had problems in the specials and lost the lead. But today I hope I'll make it to the end as the leader, so it's really a great satisfaction.
Homer, comme leader, et c'est pour moi, c'est la grande satisfaction.
Only a few kilometers are left to run on the high-tech test track to reach the final classification. And the Spanish crew will keep its promise until the end, winning its classification. In competition, things are a little less clear, because while the lead of the frontrunners is comfortable, the reliability of their Lotus Elan seems to be wanting. In Field 5, it's a chance to shine for the Cosworth Ligier of Paul Knapfield, who'll go on to win this race. The taste of victory is there too for those who have run the 2,000 kilometers and who pass with pomp and circumstance under the arch at the finish line. The regularity standings being already played out, for the leaders of the competition nothing changes. They're thus transformed into winners while arriving in the streets of Beaulieu-sur-Mer after a last day of high tension.
On avait 3 minutes et demie d'avance.
We had 3.5 minutes lead and we had to manage that. Theoretically, nothing could touch us. The only thing that could let us down could be mechanical failure, because for 2 days we've been driving with a broken inlet pipe. And for those who don't know, it's a bit like leaving to go skiing with a broken leg and crutches. You can't ski very well. And we couldn't drive very well with the car we had, so we prayed to God that she could take us to the finish. She made it, and that's the main thing.
Elle y est arrivée, et c'est l'essentiel.
It's thus the Ferrari 275 of the Spaniards de Miguel and Suarez that wins the regularity category. Everyone's rejoicing with this, and this gentleman here, who is my navigator, is from the same region as Fernando Alonso. So it's the second victory of a Spaniard in a Ferrari this year from that region. So it's a good thing. Fortunately, perhaps the spirits of Colin Chapman or Enzo Ferrari were watching over their creatures. But perhaps it's quite simply the spirit of competition and the passion for automobiles that guided the wheels of the various winners towards victory. Values that build the renown and the history of the Tour Auto with the passing of the years to write new pages of the legend.
C'était le Tour Auto avec Optique 2000.